Top of the morning to you. I love Irish art. I love Irish cinema and Irish literature and Irish music and Irish poetry. It just has that something special to me. Today is St. Patrick's Day, my favourite holiday, one that I am constantly trying to convince my Australian friends that is worth celebrating, actually. But I figured I'm usually better off talking into the void, so here we are. I'm going to give you 7 album recommendations that I think would be perfect for your day. So grab a can of the good stuff and let's get into it. I'll say it right now, no one does post-punk like the Irish do. No one. And that is the hill that I have chosen to die on. There's something about Irish rage that is so beautiful and eloquent and terrifying. And I think Fontaine's DC summed that up perfectly for me. When I hear Grian Chatton's voice singing, it's like a spiritual experience. He is tapping into something visceral and otherworldly, and I just want to bathe in it all day, you know? I really could have put any album on here because they're all incredible, but I've chosen Skinty Fia, their latest one, because I was just awestruck when I heard this the first time. It's like they took what they'd already been doing fantastically and brought it to another realm. I just cannot tell you how much I adore this album. Skinty Fia kind of roughly translates to Damnation of the Deer, which is like an Irish sort of swear. And it originates from back in the, we're talking ages ago, Ireland was inhabited by these giant elk that their antlers eventually grew too big to the point where they couldn't lift their heads up anymore, and so they went extinct. So it's kind of like an analogy for the world being big-headed, essentially. I highly recommend going down to the coastline, pick a warm, breezy evening, just as the last remnants of the sunset are fading out, everything's starting to get dark. Put some headphones on, listen to this album. I swear to you, it will stir something deep inside you that you've never felt before. I know I'm a drama queen, but just trust me on that one. Kojak is a recent find for me. I think I found his music around June or July last year, and I'm so obsessed. He is so cool. He creates experimental hip-hop tracks that take influence from a whole variety of genres. I would best describe Town's Dead, this album, as like a jazzy, psychedelic riot. It's so creative, so unique, and it just does a perfect job of representing the Irish youth voice. It's so current. Right now we're seeing this real big trend of hip-hop fusing with punk, and I'm not talking about the Machine Gun Kelly stuff. That kind of stuff is lame as shit. It feels like we're almost reliving history, where I think about the Rock Against Racism movement, where punk bands would meet up with reggae bands. It's sort of just like an updated version of that. And I mean, we got two-tone out of that movement, so I'm really excited to see what else we get out of this current trend. If you like Slow Tie, there's something on this album for you. If you like Tom Misch, there's something on this album for you. 10 out of 10. Just go give it a listen. You think I was just going to put modern albums on here? Nah, dude, you gotta go old school sometimes. If you're thinking you don't know who the Undertones are, you do, you just don't know that you know. Teenage Kicks. That's the Undertones. I was lucky enough to see them a few years back with my dad. They are incredible performers still to this day. The album is 26 songs long, so plenty of material for you to work with, and it's just all the essential hits pretty much. I'd say they're a bit like an Irish answer for the Ramones, just a bit poppier. So imagine the Ramones went on an Irish holiday with Elvis Costello. This album is what would subsequently come from that weird trip. You've Got My Number, which is the second last song on the album, has got to be one of my all-time favourite guitar riffs, that opening riff. It's so good. It never gets old, ever. This is a great party album, so chuck this on. You'll be sorted for about an hour. It's so good. Oh, you thought I was going to get through a whole video without mentioning our forest father. Not on your Nelly. And before you say it, I know. Okay? The drought is finally over, So just give me a second to quench my thirst and then I'll talk about it. It's fucking Inferno themed. Dante's Inferno, Jesus Christ. Wasteland, baby, is nihilism in its most beautiful and thoughtful form. It muses on the tragic state of a dying world and subverts this belief that you need higher meaning to have a meaningful earthly experience or appreciate beauty, worldly or otherwise. I feel a deep connection with this album. It feels like Hosier just came in and sort of plucked all of the thoughts in my head that I'd pushed to the side out and then perfected them and handed them back to me and said, here, do you understand your feelings now? I don't think I've actually listened to any album as many times as I've listened to this one, and I will continue talking to anyone who will listen about it until my last days. I promise one day I'll stop plugging this video, but if you would like to see me talk about this album more, I have a whole video. It's my second most popular video on this channel. I personally am really proud of it. Go check it out if you want to. If you want to talk about a killer debut album, look no further than Inhaler's It Won't Always Be Like This. I think I heard Falling In first on Spotify, like on my Discover playlist on Spotify, and I was just instantly hooked. I've been obsessed with this band ever since. And actually, let me show you how obsessed I am. Hang on. This is the album. And then I also have a single, another single, Falling In, single, not done. 1, 2, 3, 4. And they're all of the same thing. So they're just indie rock perfection, and they do a bang tidy job of just filling the enormous hole that Catfish and the Bottommen have cruelly left in my chest. Thanks, boys. There's not a single dud on this album. I find that's quite unusual for me. There's always like 1 or 2 songs that I'll skip, but there's none. This just powers through the whole time. Maybe controversial, but personally, I would say this album is better than anything the lead singer's father has ever put out. I really can't get enough of Elijah's voice. It's hypnotic. I really hope I can see these guys one day live. Also, I'm not one to talk about an artist's appearance, okay? I don't think it's important at all when you're just talking about the art that they're producing. But just as a side note, how are they all so pretty? Seriously though, they're like gorgeous. We've got some old school punk with Stiff Little Fingers' 1979 debut album, Inflammable Material. This band formed in the height of the Troubles in Ireland, so that really informed their songwriting, and subsequently it's really an important representation of Ireland's history and the state of its people. It was released in partnership with Rough Trade Records, which is one of my favorite labels of all time. If you just look up their history, they've put out such iconic and important albums. Inflammable Material is just packed to the rafters with punchiness. There's the danceability is like a 10 out of 10. You can really hear the influences of that older 50s rockabilly style with the newer sort of classic Sex Pistols punk. I've played so many of the songs on this album on our radio show, especially Alternative Ulster. That is such an anthem. For a hot minute, Bruce Foxton from The Jam was actually their bassist. So if you need any more proof of them being really bloody good, that's it. We're going to round this out with some more quality Irish post-punk. So the last album recommendation I have is When I Have Fears by The Murder Capital. This is some real dark and brooding shit, and it's divine. The guitars in this are so emotive and expressive, and they almost take on their own sort of character in this dark, experimental, theatric performance. Don't Cling to Life, one of the songs on this, was actually at the top of my Spotify Wrapped a few years ago, and for good reason. Much like Fontaine's DC, this feels like a spiritual experience. You can hear all sorts of influences from PJ Harvey to Joy Division, and they really do just stand up there with their peers like Shame or Soft Play. I would really, really, really love someone to write a film inspired by this album, because it feels so cinematic and it deserves to be built upon. Maybe this is a little melodramatic, but I love just laying down in the dark, putting this on my headphones, and just seeing where my mind takes me. If you're going through something at the moment, chuck on this album. You don't really even have to be listening to the lyrics, because the instrumental is so emotive. And that's it. That's my recommendations for this St. Patrick's Day. If you have any recommendations for me, please do let me know in the comments below. If you want to hear these tracks and more, so much more, you can tune into my radio show that I host with my friend Naomi. It's called Going Underground. It airs every Tuesday night from 9 p.m. on BCA 88.5 FM. Thanks so much for watching. If you don't know me, my name is Honor, and I like making videos about music and arts and culture. So if you're into that kind of stuff, I would be honoured to grace your subscriptions. Have a lovely day and week, and I will see you next Friday. Slán leat.